Hello again, it is South Africa Tonight, and let's talk again about those festive season fatalities. A total of 1,617 people were killed on South Africa's roads over the past festive season. Now, this is as a result of 1,390 crashes. Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula released those figures today, but the Automobile Association saying that festive season road deaths aren't certain to decrease. Well, let's talk to Leighton Beard about it and find out what they feel is going to be the final figure or where we'll be. Leighton, good evening and thanks for your time. So the AA is saying that these figures that we heard today are preliminary and not the final audited numbers. So what does the AA reckon we're going to be seeing when the final figures are actually released, when we get there?
Hi, Yuveka. Yes, that's correct. These are not the final figures. These are the preliminary numbers. The figure of 1,789, which was the figure for the 2018-2019 period, is a final figure and was released today. And that's 177 up from the preliminary figure given at the same briefing last year, which was 1,612. So it's very difficult to determine what the final figure from this year's period is going to be. There's a 30-day waiting period in which people who were involved in crashes during the reporting period, in other words, the 1st of December to the 15th of January, if any of those people who were injured in those crashes die, then that gets added to that figure. So it's virtually impossible at this stage, with more than 15-20 days to go before that 30-day period is up, to accurately say what the final figure is going to be. I think the point that we made is that it's too soon to say that there's been a decrease, and certainly to say that there's been a 10% decrease when that final figure isn't yet known before we do that.
And I suppose even if there is a 10% decrease, it's not something that we should be, feeling good about even, because, I mean, it really is still a high number.
Sure. Look, a 10% decrease would be encouraging and it would indicate some level of progress, and that would obviously be welcomed. But a 10% decrease off a base of 15,000 over 10 years is really not something that we need to celebrate. We have to put in a lot more hard work, and these numbers simply have to come down. The road death fatality statistic on our roads, specifically over the festive season periods, is incredibly high. So 10% is, yes, it is progress, but at the end of the day, a lot more needs to be done. But before we even get to that point, Yuveka, I think what we really want to impress upon is, let's wait till that final figure is in before we say there has been a decrease. We don't know whether there has been or not, and we'll only know when that final number is in.
Well, let's talk solutions then, Leighton. I mean, you obviously, the Automobile Association, keeping its eye on the nature of accidents, what type of accidents we've seen over the festive season, where there have been more deaths,
Sure.
whether it's pedestrians, whether it's, people traveling between Joburg and Durban or Cape Town or whatever it is. What have we seen? Are we seeing trends that are still persisting from one year to the next? Are we seeing efforts by traffic cops actually paying off? Are they doing exactly what they should be doing, and are they good at it?
So I think traffic law enforcement is trying its hardest, but the problem is that we need double the amount of traffic law enforcers. And that's according to a report that the Department of Transport itself commissioned, and which was released last year. So we need double the amount of traffic law enforcers. We need more resources for traffic law enforcement. We need better and enhanced intervention for outreach and educational programs in schools. People's behavior simply needs to change. We see that speeding is a huge issue. People not wearing seatbelts is a huge issue. These are the issues that are perennial and that come up over and over again. And one of the ways in which you deal with that is through effective law enforcement. And if you have half the number of law enforcers that you need, it stands to reason that a lot of people are going to fall through that law crack. And that's what you want to prevent. So we need a lot more intervention, we need a lot more resource and funding of traffic law enforcement, and we need simply just put a lot more law enforcers on the road.
Now, I see you also mentioned here, Leighton, about the Global Ministerial Conference on Road Safety. That happens in Sweden. It's going to happen in the middle of next month. Do conferences like that actually come up with good solutions and suggestions? And, what can South Africa learn from going to something like that?
No, they absolutely can learn from that, and there are a number of interventions that are raised at these meetings, talking about safer roads, talking about safer vehicles, things that, as South Africa, we need to be learning and taking on board. So, they have set targets for the halving of road death fatalities by 2030. South Africa had the same target for 2020 from 2010 to 2020. The Minister today mentioned that it was regrettable that we hadn't met that target. So we've got a new target for 2030. There are a lot of international best practices that South Africa can learn from. But unless we take those on board and unless we implement them, Yuveka, unfortunately we're going to see these numbers that we have every year just increasing or staying the same, certainly not halving as what we would like to see.
All right, and of course those numbers, like you say, could increase in about a couple of days or a couple of weeks from now, because we wait to see for those who are injured, Jeremy, whether any of them actually, make it after being involved in this.
Again, what troubles me, I just took a note of, the 1,789 versus the 1,600. I mean, even those figures, doesn't matter if it's a decrease by a small amount or an increase by a small amount, those figures are still unacceptable.
It's too many people have died.
It also suggests that plans that are implemented with a great deal of earnest intention every year are simply not working. So a radical rethink is needed. But on the other hand, how long have we been saying this? A long time.